Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the President, Dr. Constantin Munteanu, and all the organizers for the welcome invitation to the Romanian National Congress of Physical and Rehabilitation Medicine and Balneology. I would also like to thank all those who will follow this presentation. The topic I will be discussing derived from a collaboration between the University of Padua in Italy and the Japanese research centers. We analyzed population interest in balneotherapy during the pandemic period in Italy and Japan to obtain information regarding the role of balneology during the COVID era. Balneotherapy is one of the most used therapies for the treatment of different pathological conditions in many European countries, as well as in Israel, Turkey, and Japan. Hot springs in Italy have a millennial tradition and a widespread diffusion in all the regions of the country. The onsen, that is, Japanese spa facilities, are broadly diffused as well. In Europe, Italy was the first country to be affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. On the other hand, Japan was one of the first affected countries in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic had a huge impact on the global population, modifying interests, priorities, and habits, and leading many activities to be delayed or neglected. Also, because of the reduction of the activities of health resorts in compliance with the authorities' guidelines, balneotherapy was hardly hit by the effects of the pandemic. Therefore, we wonder if also the population attention in balneotherapy changed in the pandemic period. Recently, Google Trends is widely employed as epidemiologic datasets, yielding insights into people's behavior and interests. To summarize, Google Trends offers the relative search volume of words queried in the Google platform. The frequency of a query is automatically normalized to all search queries, and the results are given from 0 to 100. Google Trends was investigated for the terms in Italian and Japanese most commonly used to refer to balneotherapy from January 2016 through January 2021. From the analysis of Google Trends, some very interesting results were obtained. In particular, while in Italy the relative volume of search for terms used to indicate balneotherapy, therma and thermale was slightly higher, considering the period from January the 5th to the end of February 2020 compared to the mean and the 95% of the confidence interval of the same periods from 2016 to 2019. From the end of February until the 20th of June 2020, the relative search volume was lower when compared to the previous 4-year interest, demonstrating a reduction in interest during the peak pandemic period. From June the 21st to the beginning of October, the relative search volume was not different when compared to the level of the previous 4 years. Finally, from the beginning of October until the end of December, the relative search volume recorded was lower again, coinciding with a new pandemic wave and the intensification of preventive measures. In the Italian results, there were significant negative correlations between the weekly number of new cases and the weekly relative search volume, and between the weekly number of new deaths and the weekly relative search volume of the terms employed in Italian to say balneotherapy. In Japan, the relative search volume for terms used to indicate balneotherapy from January the 5th until the 14th of March 2020 was not different when compared to the mean and the 95% of the confidence interval of the same periods from 2016 to 2019. From the 15th of March until the beginning of September, the interest was lower, coinciding with the surge of the pandemic. From September to November, it became higher, exceeding the mean values of the previous 4 years. During the month of November, the relative search volume was not different compared to the previous 4 years level. Finally, from the end of November to the end of December, the relative search volume was lower again when compared to the previous 4-year interest, similarly as the results obtained in Italy highlighted a reduction in interest in searching for balneotherapy-related terms during the new pandemic wave and the intensifying of preventive measures. In Japan, there was a non-significant negative correlation between the weekly number of new cases and the weekly relative search volume, and a significant negative correlation between the weekly number of new deaths and the weekly relative search volume of the terms employed in Japanese to say balneotherapy. To sum up, we can say that during the early stage of pandemic, the interest was lower, with the decrease of interest in balneotherapy preceding the emergency declarations in Italy and Japan. After this early stage, the interest showed a recovery in both countries. In Japan, in particular, this recovery exceeded the prior 4 years levels. Then, both countries demonstrated a new decline in interest, coinciding with the enforcement of new restrictive measures. Additionally, as the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths increased, the internet searches decreased both in Italy and in Japan. It could be argued that this phenomenon is isolated and involves only the countries of Italy and Japan. However, a previous study showed that also in Turkey there was a reduction in the population interest in the period of the pandemic, with a similar trend to that recorded by our study. The reduction in interest in balneotherapy in the countries surveyed may suggest the need to rethink the role of health resorts in emergency situations. Considering the high number of patients with important outcomes from COVID-19 infection, needing early rehabilitation, and the lack of structures designed to offer comprehensive treatment to these subjects, it was hypothesized that spa facilities could represent an appropriate setting in order to conduct rehabilitation programs for this kind of subjects. In this perspective, balneotherapy setting could offer a feasible alternative to hospital rehabilitation. In fact, the thermal setting benefits from a multi-professional staff, a relaxing environment that can help to improve neuropsychological concerns, the possibility of performing exercises for motor recovery, and the combination of thermal inhalation therapies with respiratory rehabilitation. All these measures make this setting a potential environment for the recovery of subjects with post-COVID-19 outcomes that are variable and may persist for a long time. These aspects may be studied and understood in the future so as to offer balneotherapy as a resource for this type of patients. In conclusion, from this analysis of the interest found in the pandemic period with regard to the activities carried out at the spa centers, future scenarios are opened up that see a more medical and rehabilitative role for the spa facilities. Thank you all for your attention.